Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gallatin County Republican Women's Live Meet and Greet with special guest Senator and Dr. Al Olszewski and his running mate, Senator Ken Bogner. Thank you, Al and Ken, for joining us today. I would like to begin by telling the audience a little bit about both of you. Dr. Al, as he is called, was born and raised in Great Falls, Montana, and is the great-grandson of farmers and miners who pioneered central Montana and the High Line. He is the oldest of 7 in a third-generation Montana family. He graduated from Carroll College in Helena with a BA in biology in 1984 and was awarded a WAMI scholarship and earned his medical degree in 1988 from the University of Washington. During his final year in college, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Air Force and served 13 years as a flight surgeon and rapid mobility trauma surgeon, and was trained to perform emergency surgery on the battlefield. He received Air Force Commendation Medals for being a rapid response medical provider during the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995 and the Manta, Ecuador air disaster in 1996. Dr. Al began his practice in Kalispell as a partner at Flathead Valley Orthopedics in 1998. Over the past 20 years, he has cared for over 100,000 patients. He was voted Flathead's best orthopedist in 2018 and 2019 and received the 2018 Montana Medical Association Award of Merit for outstanding service to the medical community and the patients of Montana. Dr. Al has served Montana on state and national levels as a healthcare advisor since 2009. In 2014, Dr. Al was elected to the Montana House of Representatives and currently serves as the state senator for District 6. As a proven conservative, Dr. Al is a true fighter on all issues regarding everyday Montanans. He is a driving force to rein in the high cost of healthcare, open public lands, protect our agriculture, defend the Second Amendment, and fight for the unborn and most vulnerable. Dr. Al was honored with the 2017 NAMI Montana Hero Award and the 2017 Montana Conference in Suicide Prevention Impact Award for his efforts in advancing multiple suicide awareness and prevention programs for our Native Americans, our youth, and our veterans. While at Carroll College, he met his wife, Nancy, and they were married in 1987. Together, they have 6 children and 1 grandchild. Dr. Al and Nancy's first 4 children were born at an Air Force base in Texas. They became a foster family and adopted their 2 daughters. Next, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Senator Ken Bogner. Ken Bogner was born and raised in eastern Montana to a family that first settled as ranching homesteaders in Carter County over 100 years ago. Raised in Miles City, Montana, Ken attended Custer County District High School. He was 14 years old getting ready for school when he saw on the news the events of September 11th, 2001. It was that day that he felt a calling to public service and enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps upon graduation. As a Marine, Ken served 2 tours in Iraq as a combat engineer, completing missions on the Euphrates River and supporting border security on the Syrian border. He advanced to the rank of sergeant before his completion of service in 2009. After his service, Ken attended Columbia University on the GI Bill, earning a bachelor's degree in political science. He then accepted his first job in politics as a political director for Janet Wen's 2014 state Senate race for California Senate District 34. The victory in California was crucial for California Republicans as the Democrats were denied a supermajority at the state legislature. Afterward, Ken continues his education at Middlesex University in London, earning a master's degree in governance and public policy in 2016. Upon returning home from his studies, Ken worked as chief of staff for the Montana State Republicans in the 65th legislative session, and then as the Eastern Montana Field Representative for current U.S. Senator Steve Daines. In 2018, he was elected Montana Senator for Senate District 19, as he currently serves. So Dr. Al, I'd like to start with you, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words to our audience.
Certainly, Carol. Good afternoon, or actually good morning still, to all of you in Gallatin and across the state who've joined this Zoom. I first of all need to apologize for Ken Bogner. He was on. We just have an emergency in our campaign, and so he had to step away, and hopefully he'll be back in the next 10 minutes. But it was either he or I, and so you've got to put up with me.
Okay.
So that, but that, but back to what's going on today. You know, we're living in perilous times, that they're uncertain. And Montana right now needs a leader, not a manager. We need a leader that's going to be able to guide us through the next legislative session and the next couple of years, reopening our state and our economy, because we are facing an economic crisis and a healthcare crisis as big as the Great Depression and the Spanish flu. And so we need an unprecedented leader. And I present myself to you today as that person with my unique training and experience as a physician of over 30 years and as a small businessman for over 20. I understand the importance of a healthy population, our healthy patients, but I also understand that we have to have a healthy economy and a healthy business structure. So, and we don't have to pick one or the other. We can pick both. Also, as a military officer and as a state legislator that's battle tested, I understand what's going to need to be done on day one. I won't have to spend the first legislative session looking for the bathrooms. I understand who is important to be at the table and really what processes of unessential government needs to be on the table as we work to fight for our people, our economy, and for our state.
Well, I do have I do have quite a few questions for you, so I'll just jump into the question session. As governor, what do you hope to tackle in the first 100 days in office?
Boy, you know, we're facing, once again, the largest fiscal crisis that I believe Montana has ever faced, probably larger than the Great Depression, due to the abundant or overabundant services that we provide through entitlements. In fact, this afternoon, the Legislative Finance Council is going to get together and they're going to be looking and publicly putting out the revenue projections. Montana looks to be almost $500 million in the hole. That's huge. The fiscal crisis of 2017, we were in the hole just under $100 million. And that required a special session to keep us solvent. So first of all, what I learned in the Air Force, fly the jet when you lose both engines. And that's what we need to do. We need to keep our government solvent. And I can work with the legislature as an equal partner to, number one, prioritize what's essential and what's not essential for government services, and then work with the input of the people to figure out how we're going to pay for it. We're not going to have enough money to pay for all of our government services. So I can tell you, I will not raise taxes on the small businesses or on our individual Montanans, because they're already crushed already. What we're going to need to do, if we need more revenue, is we're going to have that hard discussion of opening up the coal trust fund.
Dr. Al, describe your leadership style and how you would work with the legislators and heads of government agencies.
Okay, well, and my leadership style is one of teamwork. I had great mentors and commanders throughout the United States Air Force for 13 years. And what they taught me was, again, be willing to make a command decision and then be ready to adapt and change and modify as more information comes in. Also, before I make that command decision, get as much objective information that you can. And so, as I've done in the military or as a small businessman working with partners, we work to get all the information, come up with a great decision, but ultimately, as the executive for Montana, I will make that command decision, and I'm not afraid to do so.
We have a question from one of our audience members. As governor, would you be supportive of campus carry? As governor, how would you plan to deal with the American Prairie Reserve and save the cowboy?
So there's two questions right there. So yes, it is constitutional that that students, staff, and professors or faculty are allowed to be able to carry, and they can do so right now. Students cannot, but did you know that staff and faculty and visitors can open carry on campuses? The fact is it's constitutional, and we just have to have that conversation. And in Montana, we're not having an issue with people abusing that constitutional right. As for the APR, I was one of the senators that championed the resolution to come out against the American Prairie Reserve and what they're trying to do to get special privileges from the BLM so that they can rip down the gates and the fences that they have on BLM land. The truth is that I'm a member of the United Property Owners of Montana. I have a 99% rating from them for property rights and constitutional issues when it deals with property and water. And I believe that we need to save the cowboy and then celebrate that we are a bunch of cowboys.
COVID has proved to be an unexpected economic hardship for homeowners, ranchers, businesses, first responders, and all Montanans, with possible repercussions that could last for years to come. What is your plan to help Montanans on a going forward basis and to keep this from happening again?
Well, again, what we need to remember is whether it's a pandemic, it's a major earthquake, it's a killer blizzard, a flood, or the federal government collapsing under the burden of now, what, 24 going, and they want to make it $27 trillion of debt. We need to make sure that we continue to update our disaster plans and that we go through training and practice. In the military, I was ready for every contingency. And we trained on a weekly basis for some type of disaster or wartime scenario. And if you don't practice, you're not going to be ready for when it actually happens. So we will continue to update our pandemic disaster response. We'll make sure that Montana has our own personal protective equipment in the future. And again, as a doctor who understands infectious diseases and have been trained by the military to deal with disaster response, I can cut through the baloney or the opinion and go right to the evidence-based science. And the truth is that Montana should be open right now. We should be open for business, and because living in fear is a reaction and living with courage is a decision based on the information available.
COVID has presented a shortfall to cities, counties, and the state, and many Montanans are concerned about rising property taxes, a proposed state gas tax, and the possibility of adding a state sales tax, all of which would present additional economic and financial hardships. How do you propose to balance the budget while keeping the financial hardship of Montanans in mind? And do you support a state gas tax and/or sales tax?
I support no additional taxes in this situation. To sales tax, gas tax, increased property taxes, the answer is no, no, and no. Here's the thing, we cannot crush those who have been gravely wounded by this economic and health crisis. So my plan, again, is that we need to put our government on a diet. Our state government has to have a shared sacrifice in the situation, and I've even put it out to Governor Bullock. It needs to start now. He needs to be putting people on reduced hours, or he needs to furlough unessential workers, because even though we built him a great rainy day fund, he's going through it like a madman. So for the next session, we need to consider cutting services. We have to reprioritize. And as I said before, we start equal partners with the legislation, or the legislature, sorry. And what we will do is we will prioritize all of our services like we do with infrastructure right now. And then we'll look at what we have for funding, and then we'll see what we can fund. And anything below that line, we're going to have to figure a way to curtail or to delay implementation, or, as my plan is have that serious discussion of opening up the coal trust fund and look at that $1 billion, which was put away for one of these crises. And I believe this is the crisis that we need to open up that coal trust fund.
Do you believe people should be able to opt out of all required school vaccines for personal beliefs, not religious?
Yes, in fact, I supported and voted for that in the 2019 legislature. Unfortunately, the Democrats, along with the Solution Caucus, chamber Republicans killed that effort.
What will your position be for Montana if there is a compulsory vaccine for COVID put forward?
I will fight against a compulsory vaccination for Montana for this COVID virus. Here's the truth, is that for coronaviruses, there have been previous vaccinations accomplished in China and in the Middle East, especially in Iran after the SARS-1 virus in the early 2000s and the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. They're all coronaviruses. And we saw devastating effects when this coronavirus, SARS-2 came by, the coronavirus. And it was stipulated by the Chinese scientists that have been imprisoned or have disappeared that the reason they had such a significant and devastating effect is because the vaccination actually caused this cytokine storm in all of these young people that were vaccinated when they were little. So before I would even consider the vaccine for myself, it needs to be tested and safe. In fact, I am hoping, just like Senator Rand Paul, that we're going to develop community immunity from being infected with this, just like we do with chickenpox. I will not allow mandatory vaccinations in Montana as your governor.
What is your view on contact tracing of people who have tested positive for COVID? Do you think it will be effective?
Here's the thing. The contact tracing, as described by Michael Bloomberg, a billionaire who's trying to use it for something else. No. The truth is when we look at serological testing, we've already seen that 1 out of 5 people, and maybe even higher, are serologically positive for coronavirus infection, even if they had minimal or no symptoms. My goal is to develop community immunity and understand that contact tracing is important in certain situations, but in coronavirus, it has failed. Just look at Singapore, which is a police state, and they can force contact tracing aggressively on people. It seemed to work initially, but then it failed. So no, not to this police effect contact tracing described by Michael Bloomberg, not in Montana.
We do have another question from our audience. Dr. Al, are you aware that in Yellowstone County, many ballots went out with 2 ballots Democrat and no Republican ballot? It was posted on Facebook.
You know, and that I've heard that. I've also heard of up on the High Line where a district got the wrong district's ballots, and so they couldn't vote for the people for their local county or the county as well as legislator and Senate because they got the wrong ballots. You know, it's very important that we always ensure the integrity of our election system. I'm absolutely against all mail-in ballot, whether it's for this primary or for the general or for any election. The truth is that we need to have a way to verify that Montanans are voting in this election and no one else. And I'm 100% in support, and we'll sign legislation that requires a voter ID for voting in Montana.
Another question from the audience. There is a rush to develop a vaccine for the coronavirus with the narrative that it's the only or the best solution, while no attention is being given to nutraceuticals for strengthening the immune system and increasing the health of the population. Vaccines are not a cure-all, and studies have shown they are sometimes or frequently tainted and harmful, which is what you had mentioned earlier.
Right.
Will you support alternative health education for the people so they are armed with the information they need to get healthy and strong and stay so? Also, vaccines are a decision individuals can make on their own without government interference. Do you agree?
I agree. Again, I believe that the decision to immunize should be between the person or their parents and their healthcare provider. And the government, it's time for them to understand that that they shouldn't be a part of that decision. And here's the thing. Yes, I've been promoting that you should be taking your zinc, your vitamin C, and you need to be healthy. I am a medical doctor. That means I'm an allopathic surgeon. But the truth is that I'm just one part of the continuum of health care. My job is to take care of you when you're broken or sick. And we do have good naturopathic doctors in this state. and we should be promoting health, not just waiting until you're sick and broken.
Yesterday, May 14th, you were on Montana Talks. When you were asked how you would deal with the potential of a budget shortfall that could be created by the ongoing economic shutdown, you stated that you would use money from the Coal Trust Fund. Article 9, Section 5 of the Montana Constitution is titled Severance Tax on Coal Trust Fund. It states in part that, quote, the principle of the trust shall forever remain inviolate, end quote. My question is, why should we vote for someone for governor who knows so little about our state constitution?
Keep going through there. But it can be opened with 3/4 of the legislature voting to open up the body of that. It was designed to do two things. Number one is that it was designed to create a resource for perpetual funding for the future of Montanans, using the interest off of the corpus of the Coal Trust Reserve. But number two, it was also designed to be there, not as a rainy day fund, but as an emergency parachute to help Montana if we got caught in a crisis that was going to create a collapse of our state. So it's supposed to be inviolate, but we have a mechanism of 3/4 of the legislature that vote that if we can open it up through the powers of the legislature.
COVID has caused many Montana citizens to be out of work for months or their jobs have been eliminated. What are your thoughts on immigration and or opting out of accepting refugees that could potentially take jobs away from Montana citizens?
Again, I'm a Montana first, America first person, and I would join Governor Abbott on this situation, and I would have put a pause on refugee resettlement coming into Montana because we have no skin in the game, and especially now. Uh, I get it. We want to create new jobs, but the fact is we need to save the jobs we have, and we need to, once we can recover what we've got and make sure that Montanans are working, then let's go ahead and create new jobs. And then if we need more workers, then we'll look towards that. But before we get to immigration in Montana, we're going to first or we're going to invite people who are involved in welfare to come back onto the work rolls because quite honestly, we've got plenty of work for them to help them to take care of themselves.
Another new question from our audience. Dr. Al, if you were governor, would you loosen restrictions on the cross-the-border 14-day shelter-at-home order for those who are entering our state or for Montanans who have left the state and have returned?
You know, here's the truth, and it's nice to see Ken back. Thank you.
Yes.
I hope
Welcome, Ken.
that smile on your face means that crisis was averted. Thank you.
We're good.
Good. All right. Well, here's the fact. You know, everything that Bullock did was never shall, it was should. And right now there's no enforcement of any quarantine in place if people come into our state. Look, I've been traveling this state after the first 2 weeks of the coronavirus epidemic, putting up signs and meeting people in distance. Our state is already filled with people from all over the country. I ate at a restaurant 4 days, or actually 5 days ago, with 3 people from New York who left, and they're traveling the country on Trump cash, and they think it's the greatest thing in the world. The truth is our infection rate is gone. It's low, and our state is full of people from all over the country. So relax it. It has never been enforced.
Ken, I'm glad that you were able to join us again. I do have a couple questions specifically for you. How do you see your role as Lieutenant Governor for Montana? And what specifically will you focus on as in the Lieutenant Governor's office? Hold on a second, Ken. For some reason, I can't hear your
Okay, can you hear me
microphone. Now? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm out there to have Dr. L's back. I'm out there to help get his agenda accomplished. But I'm also, you know, Montana is a big state. It's my job to be out in the communities when the governor, when Dr. L can't be out and be everywhere. It's my job to be out in the communities, listening to the wants and the needs of the people, and relaying that back to the governor. Some issues that are really important to me, being from eastern and rural Montana, is rural economic development. That's something I'd like to focus on in my role as Lieutenant Governor. A couple other issues are behavioral mental health. It's really big in rural Montana. It's an issue that we need to address. And then finally, as a veteran, I'd like to use the office to really leverage that office and that bully pulpit to make changes in the veterans community around the state, especially with the VA. And like I said, being from a rural area, you know, it's hard to get that care timely. And, you know, our veterans shouldn't have to be traveling 5, 6 hours, 7 hours to get to Helena for an appointment that, you know, they could do in their local community hospitals. So those are 3 issues that are really big for me, and I look forward to having Dr. Els back as Lieutenant Governor.
And one more question for you, Ken. Should the governor be temporarily absent from office, it is the lieutenant governor who will act as governor. In that situation, what are your top 3 issues, which you kind of just mentioned, that you would like to solve for the state of Montana, and what would your vision be for the state?
So as I just mentioned, those 3 issues, rural and just economic development as a whole, mental and behavioral health, and veterans issues. And, you know, if the governor happens to be gone for an extended period of time, you know, it'd be my job to essentially take over what his agenda was, whether it's related to property taxes, you know, developing our economy around the state through our natural resources, and making sure that we're protecting life. And that's what I need to do. And I'm ready to do that. I'm excited to do that. So, I mean, that's my vision, is to have Dr. Els back with what he wants to get done, and those 3 issues that I mentioned.
Thank you. Dr. Al, we have a question from our audience. Since the 14-day shelter-at-home directive for those coming to Montana is in place, it is killing the tourist industry. Why would you not be more discriminate in making that directive if you were governor?
Well, I guess let me be more clear. As your governor here, again, looking at the data that we have, and that's the most important thing that we need to know, is that looking at our cases across the state and knowing that it's never been enforced, and our state is already filled with people from the West Coast and even the East Coast. The truth is we've not seen a crisis occur in infections. And the truth is as your governor right now, I would just rescind that order and just say, look, Montana's open for business. Just like I'm saying yesterday on Montana Talks as well, is that Governor Bullock should have opened up those gates to Yellowstone Park. The fact is those businesses need those people, and Montanans need access to their national parks to recreate and to get out in the fresh air, which is one of the ways that we kill this virus.
Governor, and this is for Dr. Al again, Governor Bullock accepted approximately 70,000 refugees into Montana. When the refugees find employment, 50% of their salary comes from Montana taxpayer dollars. President Trump announced that states have the option to opt out of accepting refugees. Since COVID has caused many Montana citizens to lose their job, will you opt out of accepting refugees so that Montana citizens and taxpayers come first?
Yes. Number 1, I would be like Governor Abbott, and I would use the directive, the executive order that President Trump put into place to put a pause indefinitely on refugee resettlement in Montana. And one of the big reasons is number 1, I have not seen 70,000 refugees come into our state. In fact, the numbers are far smaller than that. Remember, 70,000, that's almost as big as Great Falls, Montana. But here's the fact, is that Montana has no skin in the game. We as a state can't vet these refugees. We can't track them and follow them like they want to do with coronavirus. And we need to know, are they successful in our state? Have they assimilated in our state? Or when they come here, have they left to go to the West Coast or the East Coast? And so until we have the ability to to follow and track refugees safely in Montana and carefully and closely, we're on an indefinite pause as your next governor.
Thank you. One more question from the audience. That's what we needed to hear on the 14-day shelter at home order. Now, what can we do to ensure greater transparency in how Governor Bullock is spending $1.2 billion the federal government gave to Montana as part of the COVID stimulus bill?
You know, the thing that we can do right now is our Senate and our House leadership need to call a special session. Because the truth is that if we're looking at the state of emergency, if we look technically at our own laws, because of the fact that Governor Bullock declared a state of emergency one day before President Trump declared a state of emergency, our governor was only allowed a state of emergency for 30 days unless he took it to the legislature. That's in our laws. So right now, we need to return back to regular order. And our Senate leadership and our House leadership should be calling a special session to help direct how we spend this $1.2 billion, because it has to be spent by the end of this year. And that's well before we could go back into a normal legislative session. So that would be my recommendation to our Senate and House leadership. Bring us back and let's help figure out how to spend it.
What are your ideas for restoring and developing new jobs in Montana?
Well, once again, what we need to, government does not create jobs. What we do is we can create environments through removing regulation and lowering taxes that encourages job and business creation. And that's what we need to be able to do. And I look forward, as we've seen, and now eyes are wide open on everybody, is that we need to not only become Montana energy dependent, but we need to be able to become natural resource dependent. And so let's open up our natural resources and create these high paying jobs that create great revenue for our state, not only through the income tax and the corporate tax, but through the royalties of our natural resources. And yes, as a doctor, I want to see pharmaceutical manufacturing coming to Montana from China. And yes, anything we can do for manufacturing, because we need to no longer be dependent on China.
I'm sorry, Dr. Al, the water rights issue never goes away. And the ones who want to pass it have vigorously expressed it's the only thing to do, and that all the water rights will be protected. If that's the case, then why is there a fight about this in the first place?
Because they're wrong. They're wrong. They're wrong. And here's the key thing on that. The Danes legislation says that 97% of the claims have been removed. Well, technically that's true. 10,000 claims to 300 claims is 97% gone. But if you listen to the negotiators in the legal counsel for the CSKT and what they're telling their elders and what they're telling their people is, don't worry, it's still the same amount of water and the same amount of control. It's just been bundled into 300 claims instead of 10,000 claims. So you need to read it. I am the only candidate that's read the Water Compact, which is over 1,400 pages, the Senate Bill 262 that was passed unconstitutionally in 2015. That's over 300 pages. And I've read the Danes Compact of 40 pages. And what we know is giving away the national bison range, giving away state lands to a small third party of 5,000 people, and give them all the water that belongs to Montana, and especially 350,000 Montanans, is wrong. And you know what? We want to fight for our constitutional rights. If they won't fight for our constitutional rights of property and water, what other constitutional rights would those other candidates not fight for?
If the law is passed, what do you foresee as the pitfalls? Will farmers and ranchers lose their water rights?
If you're talking about Danes legislation, well, yes, the water rights in Western Montana for those farmers, ranchers, and irrigators is gone. They will have to pay for the water, or they will have to lose their land and it'll have no value and they'll have to go somewhere else. But so the fact is that this will always go to court. If Aboriginal water rights are placed in federal law, and Aboriginal water rights would then have to go to a federal court to be decided. And we know how liberal those judges are, unless Trump gives us more conservative constitutional judges. Right now, water rights are due to a Winters Doctrine passed in 1908 by the US Supreme Court. And it's our water court that is the ultimate adjudicator. And they've already proven that over and over again that water belongs to Montana, and they will follow Montana's constitution. The only reason people are worried is because they've got the tribe scaring them, just like the coronavirus is scaring everybody across our country.
Another question from our audience. You mentioned furloughing non-essential state workers. What would be your purpose with this?
Again, what's going on is Governor Bullock is he's burning through all of our cash reserves. In 2019, and Ken were part of the legislature that created a rainy day fund for a crisis. But we're going to need that money also in 2021 and beyond, where we're going to be, on average, it's expected $500 million in the hole. That's $500 million. And if he's just, let's see what happened. In 2016, when Bullock was running for re-election, we as Republicans were saying, whoa, our income is down. Revenues are not coming in. Gas is tanked. Coal is tanked. And we're going to go into a crisis. And what did Bullock say? Oh no, everything's fine. We're doing great. Look, and he was spending money and running government like nothing was going on. Until the day after he won re-election, the day after the general election, he said, oh, we've got a big crisis. Well, he's going to do it again. Fool us once, shame on you, Governor Bullock, but fool us twice, shame on us. And the truth is that our government needs to be involved in a shared sacrifice, and they need to slow down their burn rate, and only essential services should be open right now. Until our state is open, they shouldn't be fully open either.
I have a couple questions for Ken. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, has been successful in eliminating the failed Common Core education and moving back towards some of the tried and true ways of education, but with a new emphasis on the Constitution and civics. He found that students are graduating from high school and universities with degrees in history and political science and are not required to take courses in American history or the Constitution. As Lieutenant Governor, how will you manage Montana's education system so that students have a fair understanding of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and civics, and how the United States is a unique and exceptional country?
Yeah, this is something I've witnessed as a state senator traveling around my district. I've been surprised at how few people actually know what's going on in the government, who their elected representatives, and what they do. And that's really important. I mean, that is the fabric of our society, is our Constitution and our republic, and everyone having a voice and a say in our democracy. And that needs to be the focus of our education system. We need to get back to learning what this country is about, the civics, instill that patriotism and that pride in our country. And and then that comes with learning other things too, fiscal responsibility, having a say and skin in the game in your own community. And it just all ties back into what makes our country and our society great. So that is something we have to get back to, and I'm really committed to doing that, especially as a Marine and a veteran. That is just really core to my beliefs, and we need to get back to that.
What sets you and Dr. Al apart from the other governor and lieutenant governor candidates?
Yeah, so we are two veterans. We're a Major and a Marine, and this ticket was built for a fight. And that's what we're looking for. We've taken the oath to defend this Constitution, and we want to serve this state, or serve the state again. And that's what sets us apart, is we have fought before, we're ready to fight again, and this is what's core to us, is fighting for what we believe. And we believe in the Constitution and our republic and serving the people of Montana. And we're the only ticket that has been both born and raised in Montana, and we know what this state and our culture is about, and we need to get back to that.
Dr. Al, now that you've had a little break, what are your concerns for our state forests? What solutions do you propose to protect our state forests, manage wildfires, and retain timber industry jobs?
Well, I'm from Western Montana, and this is very dear to my heart. Uh, we need to open up our forests, and we need to remove all of that extensive fiber that is a risk of mega fires. We've seen it through Lolo, and quite honestly, the bear tooth is set up, especially on the eastern edge around the Rosebud area. It's ready to explode. So yes, what I'm going to do is as your governor, I'm going to double down on Trump's good neighbor authority, which allows us as a state to manage federal lands as if they belong to the state using state law. That's one of the reasons why we're not stuck and in federal court fighting environmentalists, is because we can use state law, and we go around the Equal for Justice Act. So as legislators, Ken and I voted to create 6 foresters that are 100% are bringing out lumber out of federal jobs, and that money's going back to the state and to our local counties for infrastructure as payment in lieu of taxes. Idaho is kicking our butt in this situation, and we need to catch up, and we need to go beyond them. Right now, 1.5 million board feet are removed from federal forests that weren't done before because of the Trump good neighbor authority. And we can make that this year 10 million. And I'd like to see us getting up around 100 million board feet. It's good for our forests. It's good for our air to reduce firefighters. And now we have plentiful timber for affordable housing.
A new question from our audience. I hope you haven't answered any question like this, but I heard a school superintendent in eastern Montana is saying it is doubtful schools will be open in the fall. What is your view on this?
In eastern Montana, schools should be open now. We've found that, again, let's look at the evidence. And we've seen that we do not have a crisis right now with coronavirus. We need to be vigilant, but we also need to look at the science and the evidence. And it says, Montana, we could be going to school. What else have we learned about coronavirus? Is that young people who are school-aged children, high school children, and even in college, that the risk of serious sickness from coronavirus is extremely low, very low, almost approaching the flu. So let's open up our schools. They're already mingling. As I said, traveling the state, I see high school kids, 6, 7 of them in a Suburban or a pickup. They're out playing Frisbee. They're out playing golf. They're playing, they're playing soccer. They're mingling, and they should be at school learning while they mingle.
How do you feel about a tax credit of some sort for school choice?
Yes. Again, parents are the ultimate educator of their children. And, public school is there for us, but when it fails the child or it fails the parent, then it is time to make sure that we have alternatives. And that is charter schools. That is parochial schools. That's homeschooling. And I'm an advocate for individual education accounts that the parent is responsible for, and that they can decide to use it for the best interest of their children.
Dr. Al, what is your vision for Montana over the next 4 to 8 years if you become governor? And what is your plan to bring that vision to fruition?
The reason why I'm sitting here in front of you running for governor is because the hell in a swamp, our agencies and bureaucracy do not serve as the pleasure of a state senator. I have learned over the last 6 years that they tolerate the legislative body, a true partner in running this state. They tolerate us for 90 days and ignore us for 2 years. And in fact, the agencies ignore the governor, and they do things on their own, and they don't follow the law, and they don't follow the Constitution. And we could spend hours talking about it, but case in point, the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation started taking water rights from ranchers throughout Montana because they were pumping water to a grazed lease on state lands. And they were saying they were taking, it was a public taking without reimbursement, eminent domain, unofficially. And we as a state passed a law, and the governor signed it saying they can't do that. And you know what they did? They took us to court. The audacity and the outrageousness of an agency saying that they will not follow the law or the Constitution. My job is to change that. That means getting good directors. And we're going to change the culture of our agencies from where they believe that we serve them. They're going to relearn under an Olszewski Bogner administration that they serve the public.
If you become the nominee, what is your plan to beat the Democratic nominee?
Oh boy. You know, just listen to them. Their plan is they're going to double down, triple down on Medicaid expansion. And I am the only candidate in this race that says no to Medicaid expansion. You cannot have that argument if you agree with them part of the way. And so I'm ready as a physician and as a legislator to prove that Medicaid expansion actually has been hard on Montana. You know, if the government pays for your health care, you don't have access to it. And it's also been proven by a legislative audit that came out earlier this year that 50% of the people are in there fraudulently. That means it's the ultimate program of fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'm ready to take that conversation. And number two, we're an all-veteran team. And we're not going to be trying to kowtow to the natives, as you see with our opposition to the water compact. The fact is that there are 34,000 independent veterans, and they vote for veterans, and they vote for veterans issues. And they're already telling us, Doc, if you and Ken are on the ticket, we're voting Republican this election. So we are the best team to win election against the Democrats.
And I think there's a
County-
couple other.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I think there's a couple other points too, is we have a team that's from the West and from the East as well. We also have a ticket with a millennial and a boomer.
An old guy.
An old guy. You know, we cover the full spectrum. Rural community, you know, Kalispell, Flathead Valley, like we span the entire spectrum. And I think that's very powerful in a general election.
The last question I have, Dr. Al, county health officials have the power to close any public facilities and modify contact between citizens without the consent of local or state government. State Code 50-2-118 MCA. How would you modify this code so that during pandemics or state of emergencies, they would be required to obtain permission from the state and local government to do this?
Remember, that law has been there when we were dealing with polio. We were dealing with, which was devastating, and they weren't able to close, organizations and people's homes if they were healthy. They had to do it because they were sick. Well, this law is being abused. And we're going to go into the 2021 legislature, and as your next governor, we're going to have a great conversation about how we're going to deal with this. We need to not allow the governor to turn our state into a police state and have ultimate authority, and then to give it to our county health department. We're seeing that it's been abused in this case, this pandemic. We need to make sure that it's never abused again by unelected officials. We will pass laws that will fix that and make sure that the legislature has to consent to whatever the governor does, and that there will be a special section for a state of health emergency, which is different than a state of emergency that we were put under for this one.
Well, I don't have any more questions from our audience. Would you both like to make a closing statement?
Ken, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I didn't really get a chance to introduce myself, so I'll do that for my closing statement. I'm Ken Bogner. My family originally homesteaded in Carter County, but I was born and raised in Miles City. I joined the Marine Corps after high school. I did 2 tours to Iraq as a combat engineer. That got me really interested in politics and how it affects our local communities, but people all around the world. So I decided to pursue politics. I went to Columbia University to study political science. During my last summer there, my brother was wounded in Afghanistan. And as my family was going through that process of helping my brother recover, my community really stepped up to help my family. They started prayer chains, they mowed our lawn, they lent us money. They really stepped up and helped my family. And right then I knew that I wanted to give back to my community. And I thought that's really what makes Montana great. You don't get that all across the country. And so I decided to come back home after I finished up my master's degree and some other political work experiences to give back to my community and run for Senate myself. I was elected in 2018, sworn in 2019. I sat on Senate Ag, Education, and Senate Finance, and that's where I met Dr. Al. We really got along. We respected each other's politics and the importance that we felt in the Constitution. So I'm really excited to join this ticket. Like I said, we're two veterans. We're a Major and a Marine. This ticket's built for a fight. We're ready to serve the people of Montana as governor and lieutenant governor and make sure that we're following the Constitution and living up to Montana's full potential. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Ken. Again, the best thing about Ken is he went to the best military leadership school in the world. He's a United States Marine. And I know that he's got my back. And he's proved it in the last legislative session. And the man has high standards, character, and integrity. And that's what we need in our office. And I'm going to try to emulate that Marine to the best of my ability. Whether I'm fighting for the unborn children in the womb, whether I am fighting for women with a crisis pregnancy, or we're fighting for foster children and their parents who may have had their children taken away from them unconstitutionally, or for the water compact, what people say and what they describe is that we have courage, that this team is courageous. And that's what we need right now. Remember, living in fear is a reaction. Living with courage is a decision, and you base it on the best information you have. I'm design trained, whether as a surgeon or as a military officer, to make critical decisions and then adapt to the outcomes of those decisions and continue to fight. If you're looking for a team that 100% supports the Republican platform, we're the only one running for governor, because the opposition to the water compact, as well as opposition to Medicaid expansion, is a solid pillar of our Republican platform. I've been there. I've fought for those platforms. I've been there making the hard votes and standing up in front of people. So if you're a Republican and not Republican light and you believe in our platform, we're the only ticket for you. One other thing, we're coming in, and if we're going to beat a Whitney Williams, who's going to then pound us with Medicaid expansion and universal health care, you will not be able to win. And there's a Republican saying, well, I won't do anything. I will give you Medicaid expansion. They'll kill you. They will take and they'll slice your throat and pour you all over the place. We need to be able to stand up for what we believe in and say, no, Medicaid expansion is wrong. We can do so much better for our people in Montana, and I have the plans for it. Go to my website. You can see them. But we do have a free market approach, and we will replace Medicaid expansion and then repeal it. It's fraudulent. 65% of Montanans did not want to expand Medicaid in the 2018 election through Initiative 185. It's a winning position. We need to have it, and I'm the only one with Ken that's willing to fight for it.
Well, thank you both very much, Dr. Al and Ken, for joining us today, and along with our audience. Everyone provided great questions, and you were great, and I'm sure our audience enjoyed listening to you. This video and additional information on candidates running for Montana governor will be on our website at GallatinCountyRepublicanWomen.com. I would also like to thank Karen Clements and Mary Pham for arranging the live meet and greet and streaming it on our website and Facebook. As you know, during the primary, the Gallatin County Republican Women does not endorse any specific candidate, and an invitation has been extended to Tim Fox and his running mate, the third candidate running for Montana governor. Please watch for upcoming emails. This concludes our live meet and greet with Senator and Dr. Al Olszewski and Senator Ken Bogner. Again, thank you very much for participating today, both of you. If you would like to hear from other candidates or other items of interest, please contact us at Gallatin County Republican Women. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you,
everyone.
Carol. And once again, as an 8-year member, associate member of the Republican Women from Flathead County, as Carrie Allman said in Lewistown, ta-da!
Thank you again.
Thank you.